I'd like to thank Tommy and the National Parents Council for inviting us to present the findings today. And we're delighted to be here to share our results with you. And just that it's our initial findings we'll be presenting today, just because we even have researchers at the moment entering our data. So I'm going to present the findings today amongst young people from 12 to 18 years with a sample of 5,000. We'd actually have a sample of about 6,500, but I'll just present the findings for what we have today. And I'm in the UCD School of Psychology, and this study was conducted with Barbara Dooley, who's also in UCD. And we'd like to thank our funders, Headstrong, which is the National Centre for Youth Mental Health. And I think many of you might have heard about Headstrong. But basically, they're doing wonderful things at the moment with young people between the ages of 12 to 25. We're trying to develop services to meet the needs of young people in terms of their mental health and well-being. So today, the study that we did is called the My World Survey, and we're just going to present the findings for young people to give a snapshot of how are young people doing. So just to set the scene for the research, as you're all aware, adolescence now begins earlier and finishes later than previous generations. So, you know, previous generations, young people, they'd go to school, then they'd enter the workforce and they'd begin to lead an adult lifestyle. Nowadays, young people, they're transitioning from second level into third level. They're still dependent, often dependent on their parents in third level. They go through many life transitions. So the point at which the young person enters adulthood can be difficult to define. And our support systems and services haven't evolved with young people. So we tend to have mental health services for children, and we tend to have mental health services for adults, but there's no, there hasn't been to date services developed specifically for adolescents. So when we're talking about the health of young people, basically we're talking about their mental health. And you know, there is no health without mental health. And the research shows that about 5% of mental health difficulties occur between the ages of 15 to 25 years. So here mental health problems could be things like alcohol and substance use problems, depression, anxiety, bipolar disorders, personality problems and eating disorders. So they're kind of a range of mental health difficulties, and they occur between that age of 15 to 25 years. And about 60% of the non-fatal burden of disease amongst young people is accounted for by mental health. And a recent study carried out in the Royal College of Surgeons by Mary Cannon showed they did a study amongst 1,000 Irish young people who were aged 11 to 13 years, and they showed that 15% of young people met the criteria for mental health disorder. So mental health difficulties are prevalent amongst young people. And this graph here basically shows the incidence of health conditions across the lifespan, and each colour here reflects a different health condition. So if we look at the age group, you know, 60 and 70 years of age, you can see the major health conditions there would be cardiovascular problems, cancer, and neurological problems. But the yellow line there represents mental health difficulties. And we can see that there's a peak onset in the prevalence of mental health disorders between 12 to 25 years. So this is the age at which mental health difficulties are most prevalent. And actually we know that the services are the weakest at the point when they should be the strongest. So the services are weakest at that 12 to 25 year age group. So just to outline our research, to date in Ireland we don't have a good understanding of young people's mental health, and the aim of our research was to build a national profile to capture what are young people mental health like in Ireland. And we used a range of measures that have been used internationally so that we could see then, well, how are Irish young people doing in relation to their peers in other European countries. And we also wanted to look at the positive and negative aspects of mental health. So we didn't want to take this approach of just looking at the negative aspects of mental health. We wanted to look at positive aspects as well. And we wanted to compare our sample of Irish young people to international data. And then finally we wanted to build a model of the risk and protective factors associated with youth mental health, which could be used in prevention programs to enhance youth mental health. So at a later point we hope to develop a model to show what makes a young person resilient to mental health difficulties and what makes a young person vulnerable. So we sampled young people from 12 to 25 years of age, and at the second level then we have a sample of over 6,000 who took part in our research, and we randomly selected our schools based on the geographic locations. We've one school in each county who took part in our research, and we invited 145 schools to take part, and 71 schools agreed to take part, and we asked for one class at each school level, so one first year, second year, and so on, and about 49% of schools then was our response rate. And we obtained active parental consent, so each parent signed a consent form to take part, to allow their child to take part in the research, and then we also asked the young person to sign the form themselves to say that they agreed to take part. At third level then we had 7,600 young people from 18 to 25 years, and we've also targeted other groups of young people, so young people who are unemployed, young people who are in the workforce, young people who are in FOSS courses, and early school leavers, so young people in youth reach. So we wanted to target various different population groups of young people. And the tool that we use is called the My World Survey, and this is actually a sample of the survey that each young person received to fill out, and it's a comprehensive tool that basically looks at both the risk and protective factors associated with youth mental health. And what do we contain in the survey? Well, as I previously mentioned, we looked at positive aspects of mental health. So we looked at, what supports are they receiving from their family and friends, how satisfied are they with their life, coping strategies. So, does the young person engage in avoiding coping? So, they tend to just ignore the problem. Do they engage in emotional coping? So they tend to talk about the problem, or do they engage in planned coping? So they make a kind of a plan about how they'll deal with the issue. We looked at their optimism, so their optimism about life. We looked at their self-esteem, and that's previously been highlighted in some of the workshops today, the importance of a young person's self-esteem and enhancing this. We looked at their help-seeking behaviour, so that if a young person's in trouble, do they go and do they seek help? And then we looked at the quality of relationships with their family or friends and their romantic partners. And then we looked at resilience, so how resilient is a young person? And then finally we looked at a young person's connectedness with their peers, their teachers and the school. So they were the positive aspects of mental health that we wanted to look at. And then in terms of the negative domains, we looked at things like depression, anxiety and stress. We wanted to get a picture of what are young people's level of depression, anxiety and stress like. Alcohol use, we all know that alcohol is a major concern amongst young people in Ireland, so we wanted to capture, using the World Health Organization tool, what are the levels of alcohol consumption amongst young people. We looked at behavioural adjustment, so how did they adjust in school? So have they ever cheated on exam, be kicked out of school, gone into school, drunk, that kind of thing. We looked at their experiences of bullying, as Monica was talked about a workshop earlier today, bullying, looking at, is this an issue for young people in second level? We looked at experiences of racism, substance abuse, so do young people smoke cannabis, do they take drugs, and then a screener, an early screener for psychosis. We included a measure to assess this as well. So our tool is actually quite comprehensive, targeting both the risk and protective factors of mental health. So this was the survey that we used with two different instruments developed for whether the young person was under or over 18. So for those who are over 18, we also looked at things like gambling, because this is becoming an issue amongst young people. We looked at suicide concern. And then each young person received a support card. It was to fit into their wallet, and it was just to, if they wanted to access support and services, it just gave them a list of who they could contact. And we actually found that many young boys in school didn't want to take this support card home. Just often, I suppose, the image of, should I take the card home with me? But what we asked our researchers to do was just to say, you might want to take this support card home, but if you just want to keep it in your wallet for a friend, if they're ever in trouble, it's a good idea to take it with you. And this was a better uptake then amongst males of taking this card home with them. And young people liked the layout of the survey. They said they found it easy to complete and informative. And we asked them at the end, do they provide any comments that they wanted to, and we actually got some really rich data from young people about their mental health at the end. So I'll give you a quote at the end of what one young person said about the survey. So just in terms of our sampling frame. So I said we do have a sample of over 6,000, but just for the analysis today, a total of 4,794 young people took part. The mean age was 15 years of age, and we had an equal distribution of boys and girls who took part in the research, which is really good because a lot of research tends to be a higher percentage of females than males. So just some basic descriptive information. 81% of our sample said they lived with both parents, and 8% said they were living alone with their mothers. In terms of family size, 66% of families with 1 to 3 children, and then 27% live in families with 4 to 5 children, then another 7% live in families with 6 or more. And in terms of the ethnicity of our sample, they were predominantly white Irish. And just in terms of the breakdown by school year, we had good representation across the school year, which was important, just that we were representative of both, the junior cycle and the senior cycle. So we asked them then, do you enjoy your family life? So it was quite positive, about 70% of young people said they enjoy their family life. In terms of do you cope well with problems, nearly 50% said they cope well with problems. And then we asked them, about feeling angry. Do you feel angry a lot? So 10% reported that they feel angry a lot, and we found that those who reported that they feel angry, this was associated with an increased risk-taking behaviour, so like alcohol and drug use. And 70% said that they strongly agreed, or very strongly agreed that they had a special adult who was around them when they're in need. And actually, this is quite important that a young person has a special adult to support them, even if it's not a parent, if it's an aunt, an uncle, because we conducted a pilot study previous to this and we found that this is a good protective factor against mental health difficulties. So in terms then of looking at their depression and anxiety levels, we found that overall most young people were functioning quite well. So 70% were in the normal range for depression. Another, again, around 70% were within the normal range for anxiety. So there's about 30% then ranging from the mild, moderate, severe, very severe. And then in terms of stress, about 82% were in the normal range for stress. And in terms of self-esteem, we found that 73% had high levels of self-esteem. And we know that self-esteem is core to how a young person functions. So we actually, we're quite happy that most young people have high levels of self-esteem, because we know that if you have low self-esteem, it predicts your vulnerability to depression. And those with high self-esteem, it's a predictor of your happiness. So then we decided to take a look at levels of depression, stress and anxiety across the school year. And what we find is that as young people move from the junior cycle to the senior cycle, there's an increase in their levels of stress, depression and anxiety. And also we find that their self-esteem decreases as they move across the school year. So bullying is a concern amongst young people. So we found that nearly half of young people report that they've been bullied at some point. And of those that have been bullied, 29% say they have been bullied within the past year, 19% have been bullied in the past 6 months, about 6% report that they've been bullied on a daily or weekly basis. And then we asked the question, where have you most frequently been bullied? And 77% say they've been most frequently bullied in school. So actually, we found that it's in the traditional setting in schools where young people report that they've been bullied, and that actually only 3% said that they've been bullied by text. And we've done 2 other school-based studies in Meath and Kerry, and we found similar findings again, so that actually it's in the school setting where young people report, for most of them, that they're being bullied. And most young people as well, they're bullied by people of the same age, so about 20% are bullied by older people. So on the whole, young people, a lot of them are bullied in the school setting by peers of a similar age. And then we looked at the link between bullying and mental health, and basically found that young people who are bullied, they report lower levels of peer and school connectedness, they have lower self-esteem, they engage in more avoidant coping, so they don't tend to deal with their problems, they tend to kind of put their head in the sand, they can have higher alcohol consumption, and they report less support from their family and friends. So they're a particularly vulnerable group in terms of their mental health, and they also report higher levels of anxiety, stress and depression. So just to provide an insight into alcohol use, we can see its concern amongst young people, and in particular it becomes a concern as they move from the junior cycle to the senior cycle. So this is the World Health Organization classification tool for the measurement of alcohol consumption and hazardous alcohol drinking, and we find that 26% of young people in the senior cycle could be classified as problem drinkers. So we also looked at the frequency and quantity of alcohol consumption amongst young people. And in the junior cycle, 67% report that they never drink alcohol. So in the junior cycle, most young people report that they never drink alcohol. However, if we move into the senior cycle, then 33% report drinking on a monthly basis, 19% are drinking on a weekly basis, and at 6th year we found that less than 10% report that they're not drinking. So actually 7% of the sample in 6th year reported that they weren't drinking. And in the senior cycle then, on a typical drinking occasion, so we asked them, on a typical drinking occasion, how many drinks do you have? And we find that 28% drink between 5 to 6 drinks, 20% drink 7 to 9 drinks, and 10% drink 10 or more drinks. So, binge drinking is 5 to 6 drinks. So there's a high percentage of young people in the senior cycle, if they are drinking, that they're binge drinking. And then we looked at the relationship between the frequency of alcohol that you're consuming in your mental health and also the quantity that you're consuming. And the frequency and the quantity of alcohol consumed associated with a higher risk of mental health difficulties. And what we found is that if you drink weekly, you're more likely to be in the severe or very severe category for anxiety, stress and depression. And the more alcohol you drink, the more likely you are to be in the more severe categories for anxiety, stress and depression. So alcohol use is a major concern amongst our young people, and actually we found that when we looked at the 3rd level sample, it was the problem drinkers had gone up to 38%. So it increases right across the age group. So then we asked young people, what are the 3 biggest stressors in your life? And then we have this computer program which basically pulls out the biggest stressor that young people say. So here, school is coming up along with family and friends, but we recognise that school could just be a feature of where the young person spends most of their waking day. So, young people spend most of their day in school, so it's inevitable in a way that the school is going to be identified as a stressor in their life. And then family and friends are also identified as some of the top stressors. So other things then, they're homework, parents, tests, that kind of thing. Then we asked them, list the top 3 things that help you cope when things are tough. And what young people say is, friends, music, talking and family. So, the research shows that as young people enter adolescence, the peers play, important role in their life. So here it's kind of supporting that the friends are coming out as important, music and talking, just talking to their friends about whatever issue they're having. So we asked young people then, when you have a problem, do you usually talk about them with anyone? And 67% of young people said, yes, we do talk about a problem when we have, when we have an issue that we're going through. About a third of young people don't. And the next question we asked then is that, have you had any problems in the past year that caused you considerable stress and you could have, sought professional help? So about 9% of our sample said, I have had some problems, but I did not seek help, although I thought I needed it. And then about 6% said, yes, I have had problems and I did seek help. So we decided then to look at the association between when a young person goes to seek help, how is it linked to their mental health. So this graph here looks at the link between self-esteem and help-seeking, and we see that when the young person says that they have a problem that they felt they needed help with, but they didn't seek help, it's the 3rd box across, we can see that their self-esteem is lowest, and the self-esteem they're in the low self-esteem category. But that if the young person said, yes, I do have a problem, and I went and I sought help, that their self-esteem then tends to move back up towards the normal range. So it's just that if the young person says they have a problem and they need help and they didn't seek it, their self-esteem is quite low. But that when the young person who says they have a problem and they went and they got help, the self-esteem has increased. So it shows the importance of getting help when they need it. Then we looked at this link between help seeking and depression. And again, if the young person has had few or no problems, or they've had some problems but they thought they were okay, their depression levels were within the normal range. But again, we see a big increase, and basically if the score is above 14, it indicates that they have moderate levels of depression. So if a young person has a problem and they didn't go and seek help, their depression levels are in the moderate range. Whereas if they had a problem and they went and they got help, the depression levels moving back down towards, or peaking down towards the normal range. So in terms of the key messages then from our research, we can see there's an increase in mental health difficulties across the school year. So levels of stress, anxiety and depression increase as young people move from the junior cycle to the senior cycle. Bullying is an issue, and Monica referred to that earlier. Nearly half of young people said that they've been bullied at some point. But actually found that it was the traditional, in the school setting amongst young people of the same age was identified as, the frequent form of bullying. There's significant levels of alcohol intake in young people, and many of these young people, they're not even within the legal age for drinking. About a third of young people say that they don't talk to someone when they have a problem. So 1 in 3 young people don't talk about a problem when they have one. But then at the same time, there's 2/3 there that do talk about the problem when they have one. And 9% of young people report that they have problems and that they don't seek help. And we can see there that if a young person has a problem and they don't seek help, it's linked with lower self-esteem, higher depression levels, and we also looked at it across things as well, like their family support is lower, their anxiety levels are higher, their stress is higher. So how do we support our young people then, through any mental health challenges and difficulties that they have? So in the past, mental health services have been addressing the needs of our young people, and the main barriers that have been identified by young people is that when they go to seek support and services, there's a lack of confidentiality. They often feel that there's a stigma associated with mental health, that they're being judged by health professionals. Often there's just the cost associated with either going to the GP or seeking mental health expertise, and also inconvenience of the services. And often young people just don't know where to go to seek help. So in response to this then, Headstrong set up to try and I suppose address some of the failings of the existing support services for young people. And what Headstrong does is it's an initiative which aims to try and improve mental health amongst young people aged 12 to 25 years, and it works with communities. So it has a range of initiatives ongoing, but it's all about promoting health, mental health awareness and reducing the stigma around mental health. And as part of the Headstrong initiative, one thing they have developed are these jigsaw sites. And basically these are drop-in centres that young people can access supports and services for any issue that they're going through. So a lot of the people accessing these services, they mightn't have a mental health, say, diagnosis, but they're going through a tough time, they need someone to talk to, they're looking for support. And why Jigsaw is different to other services, that it's free, it's confidential, it's youth friendly, so young people can just drop into the centre and they get support immediate as well, so there's no long waiting list. And there's a youth advisory panel on board all these Jigsaw sites, and these young people are involved in things like interviewing the staff who get hired in Jigsaw. They're involved in picking out where the building should be situated and how the building is designed, and all the different services provided within each Jigsaw site, they're discussed with the young people. And this is an example of Jigsaw site in Galway City Centre. So is Jigsaw working? Well, this graph has been recently updated, but the research shows that 2,000 young people have accessed the service since 2009, and many of these young people are just going in just to get support for whatever issue they have. So it could be something like exam stress, a romantic relationship breakup, or it could be something more severe like an alcohol problem. And it's working because young people are referring themselves or as their parents. So they're the two major sources of referral: is parents bringing their young child in, or bringing their adolescent into the service, or else young people are just dropping into the service themselves. And we can see that there's a gender balance, so there's an equal amount of male and females accessing these services, and that's really important because actually the research shows that males are much less likely to seek help. And here we can see that if we create the proper environment, that men will come and young males will come and access these services. And the biggest age group using these Jigsaw sites is the 16 to 18-year-olds, and I suppose it's in line with our data, which shows that 16 to 18-year-olds are at the greatest risk of mental health problems. So this is just one of the comments that a young person wrote at the end of the survey. So we just say we welcome any comments that you may have. And this young girl says, I just wanted to say I really like the idea of the survey. In helping to understand teenagers better, we might be able to provide better facilities. I lost a close friend to suicide a year ago, and I wish I could have done something to help or make her feel better. I hope that this survey helps people in the future. Thank you. So basically we hope that the findings from this research and its conducted in conjunction with Headstrong will feed into the development of improving supports and services for young people. So I'd just like to thank all the young people who took part in our research, the parents, the schools and the teachers. We really value everyone who got involved in this research, and also there was a huge research team involved, so I'd like to thank them and also our volunteers who worked with us. So thanks a million.